Well, for more now on the deteriorating humanitarian situation in Gaza, I'm joined in the studio by Michel-Olivier Lacharité, who's the head of emergency operations at Médecins Sans Frontières, that is Doctors Without Borders in English. Thank you very much for being with us here on France 24 today. How would you characterise the level of human suffering in Gaza right now?
That's a good question. We have seen in the last night a lot of shelling on the eastern part of Gaza. This has provoked as well, after the evacuation order of this part of Rafah, the closure of another hospital. So according to WHO, the World Health Organization, there is only 1/3 of the hospital partially functioning today in Gaza. So it's another hospital that closed 2 days ago. And I just learned that Kerem Shalom crossing point reopened. But we are still suspended to see if both humanitarian goods and our staff can enter in Gaza today. So we're waiting some news today to see how to move forward.
So we are expecting the Kerem Shalom border crossing to open today, but the Rafah crossing remains closed. Just how significant is that? How important is that Rafah crossing from Egypt into Gaza as far as the movement of humanitarian aid and personnel?
So we have seen a lot of new development with the pier, with the opening of a new entry point. But from our perspective, this is a smoke screen. So currently, there is, of course, the question of the number of trucks. It has increased, but the real question is the last mile distribution. For instance, in the month of March, all the requests made to access the north to do delivery were denied by the Israeli armed forces and the security. So today there is no safe area everywhere in Gaza Strip. So it's very complicated to deploy assistance. Currently, we are really scared with the ground offensive. There are more than 1.2 million in Rafah city, and this evacuation order to request people to move in the middle area and in Khan Yunis, we don't see how they can cope with this new order. There is no water system. There is only rubbles. Rubbles may contain some unexploded device. It's quite dangerous. And this population is exhausted. And only one today hospital is functioning in this area, so in Dar el-Balah. And we are trying, Doctors Without Borders, to implement 2 new field hospitals. This is not done. But from our perspective, field hospitals are a failure because it means that all the other hospitals are destroyed. And from the 3,500 beds that were functioning prior to this war, today only 700 remains from the Ministry of Health and 400 from the different field hospital. So, of course, we can see that it's a technical success. However, there is an important need to have more beds and to address the medical needs at the moment.
And how do you go about setting up field hospitals when accessing supplies, medical supplies, but also medicine, is so difficult?
So we are now at 7 full charter that we succeed to enter into Gaza. However, an hospital is a concept. It's a kit. So if you don't have the electricity, you can have tons of paracetamol or drugs. If you don't have the generator, it's not possible to work. If you want to do the surgery in an operating theater and you don't have X-ray, how can you do your job properly? So in the past weeks, we are pushing to have these strategic items. They are considered as dual items and can be served by warring parties, so namely the Hamas and other groups. But for this reason, we can't do our job properly. So we can say that goods are moving, but if we don't have the critical items, we are not capable to work. And if we look for the question of the food, it's true that in the past weeks there are an increase of number of trucks. However, MSF is present in Gaza Strip since 36 years. This is the first time that we see acute malnutrition. So we continue to admit children at the moment, both in Rafah and we are completely blind from what's happening in Gaza City. So, of course, there is trucks moving, but we need to go beyond the question of the number of trucks passing and address the question of security and the capacity to distribute goods, tents, and food. So at this stage, Israel must halt this offensive, and there is no humanitarian war, there is no humanitarian space, no area is safe today in Gaza.
Now, the UN has said that there is already full-blown famine in the north of Gaza. Could you just explain for us again why there's such a disparity between the south and the north? You mentioned it earlier, but I'd like to get a better idea of why there is this real contrast between the access to food in the north and the south.
So historically, Israel urged and ordered the population to move towards the south. Currently, the Israeli armed forces are controlling the northern part of Gaza, and the majority of the population is in the south. However, hundreds of thousands remain in the north. For humanitarian actors, we need to request access to do a movement. Sometimes they are denied, sometimes they are assaulted, sometimes we are blocked at the checkpoint, sometimes that occurred last week. One of the drivers of the convoy was arrested. So to go in the north and to evaluate the situation, currently it's extremely complicated nor not feasible. So we are currently blind. It's not possible really to implement major or consistent activity because security and accessing this area.
Now, there are fears that Israel's current limited operation in Rafah, as you mentioned earlier, will expand to a larger ground operation. What would that mean for people living in Rafah? Over 1 million people, well over 1 million people, as you mentioned earlier.
So it's complicated to imagine. Today, people are living in makeshift shelter, and they will be ordered to move in a devastated or shaved area full of rubbles. So today, if there is disorder, the people will go in area without water, without access to primary health care, and the time to implement new activity will be quite long, and we can't shift an hospital from one area to the other within few days. So that will be a huge disaster, and of course, this assault will provoke a lot of deaths amongst the population. So today we are in a low intensity phase, if we can say, and we are accounting, or the Ministry of Health is accounting, averagely 50 people killed every day.
Michel-Olivier Lacharité, Head of Emergency Operations with Médecins Sans Frontières. Thank you so much for giving us the time to discuss this humanitarian situation in Gaza with us today.
Thank you.